The eye that sees the world is blind to the one that sees within. These words, whispered through time by Zarathustra, hold more truth than most can bear. For centuries, humanity has been obsessed with the outer world, the visible, the measurable, the tangible. We build our realities based on what we can see, touch, and explain. Yet the most profound truths have never existed out there. They've always lived inside, dormant, waiting. This video is not just about the third eye. It's about what's behind it, the intelligence that sees without sight, the knowing that exists before thought. Across ancient traditions, from Vedic scriptures and Buddhist Tantra to Egyptian mysticism and Hermetic philosophy, the third eye has always been a symbol, a portal, and a forgotten science. It is the gate between the seen and the unseen, the physical and the spiritual, the mind and the infinite. In modern terms, it is linked to the pineal gland, a small endocrine organ at the center of the brain, often dismissed by science, but revered by mystics. René Descartes once called it the seat of the soul. It is the bridge where consciousness meets biology, a receiver, not just of hormones, but of frequencies, intuition, and truth. But if this center of perception holds such immense power, why is it dulled? Why is it calcified, blocked, suppressed? In our diets, in our education, in our culture? The answer is not just biological, it's spiritual. The closing of the third eye is not an accident. It is the byproduct of a world that profits from your blindness, a system designed to train your outer eyes and keep the inner one closed. When we begin to reawaken this dormant faculty, we don't just see differently. We experience reality differently. Shapes change, patterns emerge, time slows, the illusion of separateness begins to fracture, and what emerges is not fantasy, but a deeper layer of truth, the kind of truth that doesn't scream for attention, but waits silently until you are ready to receive it. This journey isn't about magic tricks or flashy powers. It's about perception, refined, sharpened, aligned. The third eye doesn't make you supernatural. It makes you natural again. It returns you to the original state of awareness, before the noise, before the forgetting. Let us begin. To understand the third eye, we must first forget everything we've been told about what it means to see. True vision has never relied on the physical eyes. The third eye does not reflect, it reveals. It is not concerned with objects, forms, or appearances. It tunes into frequency, essence, and energy. This is why ancient cultures referred to it as the inner eye, not because it looks inward, but because it perceives what is hidden beneath the surface of all things. In the Vedic tradition, it is known as ajna, the command center. Positioned between the eyebrows, this chakra is said to govern intuition, insight, and the ability to perceive beyond time. In Egyptian symbology, the Eye of Horus represents the same concept, a faculty that sees into realms beyond the waking world. The Greeks, too, hinted at it through the teachings of Pythagoras and Plato, both of whom believed in a world of forms hidden behind the illusion of matter. The third eye is less an eye and more a lens, not a window, but a transmitter and receiver. It does not simply allow you to observe mystical things. It shifts the context in which all observation happens. Through it, symbols speak, archetypes emerge, and your intuition becomes your compass. Those who have activated this center describe not hallucinations, but clarity, not escape, but presence. But such perception comes with a cost. It demands silence, solitude, and surrender. In a world that constantly stimulates your senses, the idea of withdrawing inward is countercultural. And yet, that is where all authentic vision begins. In the quiet, in the stillness, in the dark. The ancients knew this. That is why initiates entered caves, fasted, remained in silence for days. They were not escaping life. They were preparing to finally see it. There is a reason the pineal gland is shaped like an eye. There is a reason it contains photoreceptive cells similar to those in the retina. And there is a reason that it responds not only to light, but to rhythm, magnetism, and thought. It is a multidimensional organ in a society obsessed with one-dimensional living. When this center begins to awaken, subtle shifts occur. Synchronicities intensify. Dreams become clearer. Intuition becomes undeniable. Reality, once rigid and absolute, becomes fluid. A conversation, not a prison. What once appeared random begins to reveal patterns, and those patterns speak to you, not through words, but through knowing. Modern science, reluctantly and quietly, is beginning to echo what the mystics always knew. The pineal gland, located deep within the brain, is sensitive to light and magnetism. It produces melatonin, which regulates our circadian rhythm, our waking and sleeping cycles. But beyond that, it produces a substance still surrounded by mystery: dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, a molecule found naturally in the body and in many plants used in sacred rites for vision and awakening. DMT has been called the spirit molecule, and for good reason. Under its influence, time dissolves, space bends, and the boundaries of self begin to blur. Those who experience it, whether in near-death situations or under controlled ceremonial use, often describe entering realms of profound intelligence, light, and pattern. Whether these are hallucinations or glimpses behind the veil is still debated. But the pineal gland appears to be the antenna. If so, then the third eye is not just a metaphor. It is a biological interface with non-physical information, a sensor for consciousness. And just like any sensor, it can be dulled, blocked, or damaged. Fluoride exposure, electromagnetic interference, processed foods, and chronic stress all contribute to the gland's calcification. Over time, the eye designed to see truth becomes blind, and we confuse numbness with normal. Yet even a blocked third eye can be reawakened. Through certain practices, breathwork, meditation, fasting, silence, sound, intention, the veil begins to thin. You start to remember what you already knew, but forgot. This is the paradox. The third eye doesn't show you something new. It reintroduces you to what has always been there. The ancients didn't have microscopes or MRIs, yet they knew of this eye. They mapped it through experience, and across continents, cultures, and centuries, they spoke of a similar center, the place where divine knowledge emerges not through study, but through presence. You've likely felt it before. Those moments of sudden knowing, those chills down your spine when something unseen confirms itself without evidence, when time stretches and you just get it, even if you can't explain how. That is the whisper of the third eye, not loud, not showy, but unmistakable. This eye doesn't open through force. It opens through readiness, through trust, through stillness. You don't awaken it, it awakens you. In the traditions of Taoism, it is said that energy follows awareness. Where your mind goes, your life force flows. The third eye is not activated through effort, but through attention, sustained, quiet, conscious attention. When we bring our awareness to the space between the eyebrows, breathe gently, and listen inward, something shifts. It may not be immediate, but it is undeniable. You begin to sense things, not see them with the eyes, but perceive them with presence. This presence is the currency of higher perception. The more scattered your awareness, the dimmer the light. But the more focused your attention, the more this inner eye begins to blink open, like a muscle remembering how to move. It was never gone. It was simply unused. The world taught you to look outward, to chase validation, to fear silence. Now, you are doing the opposite. You are tuning in, slowing down, returning to center. Breath becomes key. With each inhale, you draw energy into this center. With each exhale, you release the mental noise that blocks your inner vision. Over time, the noise fades, space opens, and in that space, clarity arises. Not forced, not imagined, but real. You begin to see, not as the eyes do, but as the soul does. Patterns emerge, connections form, and truth begins to resonate deep in your body. At this stage, you may begin to notice changes in your dreams. You remember them more vividly. Symbols become stronger. Guidance becomes clearer. This is not coincidence. The subconscious is communicating. Your third eye is the bridge. It connects waking consciousness with the deeper layers beneath it, and eventually, with the collective field of wisdom that mystics and visionaries have always accessed. But this journey also brings challenges. The more you see, the more responsible you become for what you know. Illusions you once lived by begin to fall away. The lies you believed about yourself, about the world, about what's possible, start to unravel, and that can be painful. Awakening is beautiful, but it is also a breaking. The third eye doesn't just show light, it reveals shadow too. Still, this is the price of clarity. You cannot selectively awaken. When the eye opens, it sees all. The divine, the distorted, the truth, and the lie, all are laid bare. But from that seeing comes wisdom, and from wisdom comes freedom. Freedom, however, is rarely comfortable. The third eye doesn't make life easier. It makes it real. With this awakening, you begin to understand that much of what you once called reality was programming, societal expectations, cultural filters, emotional conditioning. You start to see through people, through systems, through your own defense mechanisms. And perhaps for the first time, you stop reacting and begin observing. Observation is the true power of the third eye. It creates a space between stimulus and response, a pause wide enough for wisdom to enter. You notice not only what's happening outside you, but what's happening within. You become aware of the subtle energies, the internal shifts, the vibrational fields around words, spaces, and people. You start to read life, not just live it. With this vision comes a kind of peace, not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of understanding. You no longer chase illusions because you've tasted something more real. You no longer fear silence because you've met the presence within it. You no longer seek truth outside because the inner vision guides you, silently, surely, and consistently. There are ancient practices for cultivating this state. Trataka, the yogic gaze, where one fixes the eyes on a flame or symbol to steady the mind. Visualization, not imagination, but focused seeing of sacred forms and light. Chanting, especially bija mantras that vibrate directly into the Ajna chakra. All of these are tools, but none of them work without stillness, without surrender, without presence. And here's the paradox. The more you try to open the third eye, the more it eludes you. It opens not through striving, but through softening, not through control, but through allowing. The mystics knew this. They never forced the inner eye open. They waited. They prepared. And when the time was right, it opened on its own, like a flower that blooms only in stillness, at night, under the stars. This is not about supernatural power. It is about clear perception. It is not about being spiritual. It is about being present. When the third eye opens, you don't become someone else. You become who you've always been, but forgotten. And in that remembrance, the world begins to look different. Not because it changed, but because you did. What you begin to realize is that the third eye is not just about sight, it's about alignment. When it opens, the inner and outer worlds stop contradicting each other. They sync. Synchronicities no longer feel random. The timing of events, the symbols in your dreams, the feelings in your chest, they start to speak a unified language. Not because the world changed, but because you finally became fluent in it. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of seeing truly. It was never about mystical visions. It was about coherence, the ability to sense what is real, even when everyone else calls it illusion. The power to feel what is coming, even before it arrives. And perhaps most importantly, the courage to trust your inner knowing when all outer voices are screaming against it. As this center strengthens, so does your sovereignty. You are no longer easily manipulated, no longer pulled by fear or distracted by noise. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, choose differently. Not because you read it in a book, but because you saw it within yourself. The third eye doesn't give you answers. It shows you the questions that actually matter. And here is the truth no one tells you. Awakening the third eye is not an end. It is a beginning. A doorway into a deeper relationship with life, with energy, with the unseen. You stop trying to control everything because you've seen that you are not separate from it. The more you surrender, the more clearly you see. And in that clarity, fear fades. Not because danger disappears, but because illusion does. You were never meant to be blind to your own power. You were never meant to stumble through life disconnected, dulled, distracted. The third eye is your inheritance, the birthright of every human being, not reserved for mystics or monks, but available to anyone willing to pause, to listen, and to remember. So now the question is not, can you open your third eye? The question is, are you ready to see what it's been showing you all along? Because the veil is thinner than you think, and the eye has always been watching, waiting for you to open.